Should Christians use artificial intelligence technology? Well, the answer may not be as simple as you might think, but it requires us to look at what Scripture has to say about technology and about creativity and about us being made in God's image. Let's discuss.
Let me bless the studio. Fix up the microphone. Check 1, 2, 3, go. Sure. This is Udo Ibeleme, your host, and welcome to the show.
Preach Jesus.
Let's start this off with Ecclesiastes chapter 1 from verses 8 to 11. May God bless the reading of his word and those who hear and listen. All things are wearisome. Man is not able to tell it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. That which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one might say, "See this, it is new"? Already it has existed for ages which were before us. There is no remembrance of earlier things, and also of the later things which will occur, there will be for them no remembrance among those who will come later still. Now, in Ecclesiastes, we have a speaker. Most of the book is the words of the speaker, and the speaker might be called the critic or the preacher. He also identifies himself as King of Israel and all of those things. Matching up the different clues in the book, it is commonly concluded, including by me, that these words come from Solomon. All right? And what we have here is a part of his reflections, saying that nothing is new under the sun. And this remains true even when we look at technological advancements. This remains true even when we look at creativity. These are two areas where one would tend to think that what we're dealing with is things that are new, things that are completely new. To be sure, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, right? John chapter 1, verse 1 says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." The same was in the beginning with God. That's verse 2. Verse 3 goes on to say, "All things were made through him, and without him, nothing that was made," right? So Genesis, let's start with Genesis. Genesis just assumes God's presence before anything else. And he's at the beginning creating everything else. All right? Before that, it's just him existing in and of himself, by himself. He is the one who is, right? He's Yahweh. He's the one who is. John gives us a little insight into what happens before the beginning, how things are before the beginning. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, same was in the beginning with God. And all that just tells us that God, our Christian Trinitarian concept of God, existed before everything, and they were just there. And then everything else came after. All things were made through the Word, who is identified as being with God and as being God himself, right? All things were created through him, and without him, nothing that was made was made, all right? So there is creator, creature, the Word and God, and of course also the Holy Spirit. We see that in Genesis chapter 1 as well. In the beginning, the Holy Spirit is hovering over the waters. Where did he come from? He wasn't created. Verse 1 didn't say God created the heavens, the earth, and the Holy Spirit. All right? So you have the Father, the Word, and the Holy Spirit there in the beginning. All right? And they are the creator. He is the creator. One what, three who's, right? So God is the creator, Trinitarian God is the creator, then everything else is the creature or the creation. All right? And that distinction is one of the things that is unique about the Christian worldview. Usually, other myths, and by using the term myth here, I don't mean true or not true. I mean, this is our meta understanding of how everything works. This is our worldview, where our worldview comes from. The stories that shape our worldview and the stories that shape their worldview before had no creator-creature distinction. There's a primordial goo. Gods emerge from the primordial goo and they shape the rest of it according to their liking. Right? And that's how everything comes to be. All right? So the gods and their creation, they're all made of the same stuff. They're all on the same plane of existence. And it becomes you are able, if you want, to go from where you are to become a demigod, to become a god, or a god then gets demoted to a demigod, gets demoted to man. You see this in Greek, Norse mythology. You see this in Mortal Kombat, right? You see these kind of things. Raiden comes down from being an elder god to a demigod. Now everything has started over. He's not even a god anymore. He's a human being. Liu Kang, who was a human being, he's a god now. So you see everything being on the same plane of existence, and you're able to aspire upward or downward. In Christianity, in our myth, our meta-narrative, there is a creator-creature distinction. And before the creature, there is nothing else influencing the creator but the creator. He is by himself doing all of what he is doing. And so he doesn't have anything that he's using for inspiration. He doesn't have any raw materials that he's working with. He's creating ex nihilo, out of nothing. All right? He makes us in his image. And that means that we can be creative, but we're not creators in the sense that he is. Even in the first verse of the Bible, if I remember correctly, the second word in the Hebrew is bara, right? And that is the word that corresponds with our English translated word created, but it's a word that is never used for anyone but God in the Bible. God is the only one that baras, right? Only God baras, right? Bereshit bara Elohim. God is the only one. He is the only one that creates in that way, out of nothing, by his raw power, out of his unguided, uninfluenced imagination. We have to use raw materials around us and take what is around us apart and put it back together in a different way. Take things that weren't related to each other and make them related. And then even our ideas, again, we exist in the world around us. And so we are not able to even be creative without being influenced, right? So in the actual sense, as well as even in the sense of us generating our ideas, we do not create out of nothing. We are influenced right? And we must have raw materials. God is not like that, all right? But because we are influenced in that way, and because we live in this created world that God is upholding, all right, ever since the flood, he has certain rules that everything is going to follow. He says, as long as the earth remains, according to Genesis 9, if my memory serves me correctly, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. And what that means is that the created world follows certain rules. And so, unless you discover something that you haven't seen before, you're going to be seeing the same things all the time, because the world is going to be moving in the same way all the time, as it is upheld, as it's upheld by God, as it's upheld by the power of God. And then everything that we have done, everything that we have been influenced by, is a part of God's creation. That's one. As well as it's something that someone else, if it's not just raw as God made it, it's something that someone else took apart and put back together. It's something that someone else associated in ways that it had not been associated before, right? But it was always there. And so, even in the sense of technology and creativity, there is nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new. I typically use Apple products, and so I heard the story of how Apple came up with MagSafe chargers for laptops, such that if you were to trip over your MacBook charger, the charger would pop out of the laptop, as opposed to pulling the laptop down with it and seriously damaging the laptop from the fall. That was something that was witnessed in Oriental Asia. I can't remember whether it was China or Japan. Rice cookers had the same thing, had the same sort of, for lack of a better term, I'm not sure what they would have called it, MagSafe plugs, MagSafe power cords, right? That would pop out if someone tripped over them. And so something that wasn't associated with the personal computer, Apple took it and associated with the personal computer. All right? What is an iPhone? This is another one of their inventions. They took things that were not associated with phones and made them associated with phones. So listening to music, watching movies, browsing the internet, doing everything that you would do on a computer, as well as making calls and sending text messages. Only two of those things were associated with mobile phones before the iPhone, right? Only a few of those things were associated with mobile phones before the iPhone. The iPhone came and took something that was there and made a new association. And so nothing is new under the sun, in the sense that the things that the things that we do with the iPhone now, we were doing before we had the iPhone. The things that magnets were there, and magnetic fields were there before they started being associated with the MacBook charger, or even before they started being associated with rice cookers. All right? So nothing is new in that sense. All right? This is what we're dealing with in terms of artificial intelligence. We're dealing with the new kid on the block in terms of technology. Right? A lot of people have issues with artificial intelligence in principle, but we need to think of it as technology. It's new technology. That's all it is. It's new technology. Are you going to be against technology? Are you going to be against the technological advancement of the image bearers of God? because this is a part of our exercise of dominion. All right? We were given that dominion mandate or cultural mandate or creation mandate, whatever you may call it. Genesis chapter 1, verse 28 says, God blessed us, and he said to us, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, and have dominion or rule over every fish in the sea, every bird in the sky, and every living thing that moves on the earth. All right? How are we going to have that type of dominion if at some point in time technology doesn't come into play? How are we going to rule over every fish in the sea without technology? How are we going to rule over every bird in the sky without technology? Right? How are we going to do that? All right? Even domestication and training of animals is, in essence, a sort of technological advancement. You understand? You are associating things that haven't been associated before. Okay, this animal hasn't been made obedient, so we're going to associate this animal with obedience by learning this animal and then taking what we know about this animal to get it to be adapted to our own use and our own purposes. That's a technological advancement, all right? And it's part of our exercise of dominion, all right? So it's difficult to say that you're going to be against technology in principle. It's actually hypocritical to say that you're against technology because you aren't. If you are hearing me or if you're watching me, you're a hypocrite if you say you're against technology, right? Even if you're not hearing me and you're not watching me and you say that you're against technology, you're still a hypocrite because at some point in time, whatever you were using, whatever you are using, whatever you tell yourself is okay to use, was invented. And you've just limited yourself to the technological advancement of God's image bearers up until the 20th century, or up until the 19th century, or up until the Reformation, or the Renaissance period, or the Industrial period. Or that's what you've done. You can't be against technology in principle because everything short of using your hands and feet is technology. Other creatures don't really use technology. We do. All right? And even those who they will say, oh, they use tools. They use a specific thing in a specific way all the time. That's what they do. Or they figure out a way to get out of something. They don't make and use tools. That's what we do. All right? At some point in time, Adam wanted to get a fruit that was too high, and so he stoned one of the trees. He threw a stick at it. He did something like that. And at that point, technology. At that point, you have technology. All right? The Amish, they say that, okay, they are not, they have an issue with technology, but they use horses and other animals. They ride horses, as I said. They use carts. They light fires. They wear clothes. You can't get away from this. You can't get away from this. It's just that they have decided to stick to technology up until a certain point in time. All right? You are basically doing the same thing. If you say, see me, from 2025, go forward. From 2024, go forward. From 2023, go forward. I am not using any new technology. You're doing the same thing, but it's hypocritical. It's hypocritical. When I've heard a story that says that when electricity first came about, the issue people had, or the issue that someone spread about it, was that it would burn your house down, right? And here I am in a house that should be engulfed in flames using many electronic things, electronically powered things at the same time. All right? So that's technology. Can't get away from it. Can't be against it in principle without being a hypocrite. All right? Technology is wealth. All right? This is sort of what happens. We have currencies that are linked to certain things, certain governments. We also have cryptocurrencies now. And so these are the things that we tend to associate wealth with. Those things only have value because we use them to trade other things. All right? We trade them for other things, and everyone is willing to trade what they have for these currencies. That's why we use them, because of all of the things that we can get with them. Nobody sits and eats their money. Nobody shelters under their money. Nobody wears their money. All right? What brings wealth? What brings wealth is this brain that we have, these hands that we have. That's where wealth comes from. And technology makes whatever we're thinking and whatever we're doing more efficient. That's all it does. Every time there's a technological advancement, we're able to do more with less. And so things are able to advance more and more and more. All right? That's what technology is. And that's what it is. It's wealth. And so when we think about technology, we should think about wealth. For instance, this particular episode of the show is hopefully going to be on YouTube, and it's being shot on a cellular phone, for example. In order for me to do the amount of things that I can do with this cell phone many, many years ago, it would take me much more time than it does take me right now. And I would need a lot of servants as well. I would need a lot of money, I would need a lot of time, I would need a lot of servants. All right? And so, me not being of any nobility, not being a very affluent person, me not being any royalty, not being a politician, not being anybody in that part of society or with that amount of wealth, this is what I'm able to do. I'm able to reach out to the world through my mobile phone. That is something that the everyman would not have been able to do before the 21st century. Because to do that would have been way too expensive for him. And this is how technology is wealth. All right? More discussions on technology and tools and all of these things. A good book for that would be Ploductivity by Douglas Wilson. That's Ploductivity. Ploductivity. Very good book. All right? Since we've identified that technology is wealth, we should look at what the scriptures tell us about wealth. And wealth, according to the scriptures, it brings about the temptation to forget God. And those who don't know God, those who forget God, risk losing their wealth. All right? So I'm going to dive into some scriptures. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 10 to 15. Then it shall come about when the Lord, Yahweh your God, brings you into the land which he swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you great and splendid cities which you did not build, and houses full of all good things which you did not fill, and hewn cisterns which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant, and you eat and are satisfied. Then watch yourself, that you do not forget the Lord who brought you from the land of Egypt out of the house of slavery. You shall fear only the Lord your God, and you shall worship him and swear by his name. You shall not follow other gods, any of the gods of the peoples who surround you. For the Lord your God in the midst of you is a jealous God. Otherwise the anger of the Lord your God will be kindled against you, and he will wipe you off the face of the earth. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 11 to 20. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments and his ordinances and his statutes which I am commanding you today. Otherwise, when you have eaten and are satisfied, and have built good houses and lived in them, and when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and gold multiply, and all that you have multiplies, then your heart will become proud, and you will forget the Lord your God who brought you out from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. He led you through the great and terrible wilderness with its fiery serpents and scorpions and thirsty ground where there was no water. He brought water for you out of the rock of flint. In the wilderness he fed you manna which your fathers did not know, that he might humble you and that he might test you to do good for you in the end. Otherwise you may say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand made me this wealth, but you shall remember the Lord your God. For it is he who is giving you power to make wealth, that he may confirm his covenant which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. It shall come about if you ever forget the Lord your God, and go after other gods and serve them and worship them. I testify against you today that you will surely perish. Likewise, the nations that the Lord makes to perish before you, so you shall perish, because you would not listen to the voice of the Lord your God. So here we have a discussion of Moses in the second giving of the Lord Deuteronomy, right? Moses is speaking to Israel before they enter the promised land, and he is telling them, remember the law of God. Remember that God is the one who's bringing you to where you're going to be. And so when you go there and you enjoy what the Lord is providing you with, do not forget him. And do not tell yourself, I am the one who has gotten these things for myself. It's me. I have done it by my power and my might. I am the one who has gotten these things. Don't tell yourself that, because then you'll be putting yourself in danger. You will be in danger of getting in trouble. You'll get in trouble. You will be judged in the same way that those who I'm going to kick out of the land so that you can get there, you will be judged in the same way that they're going to be judged. So pay attention, remember the Lord, and don't get yourself in trouble. All right? That's the gist of what's happening here. Now, there's a proverb that I want to read here. This is a principle that we can look at when it comes to wealth, which I have argued includes technology. All right? Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. All right? So here we have in this proverb two sides of a coin that you often only see one side of, meaning that this proverb has two parts that are being juxtaposed. And because you only hear of one, or you hear of the other depending on what circles you run in, right? You may hear of one and you just hear a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and that is just always going to be said. Hey, you need to leave money for your children. You need to leave money for your children. You need to leave money for your children's children. That should be your goal, to do that, right? On the other side, you might hear the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. Get ready for checks in the mail. Get ready for such and such. Neither of those messages is what is being communicated by the proverb. If we look at the juxtaposition, we will understand it a little better. The good man and the sinner, they are being juxtaposed. The good man is the one who leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the sinner is the one whose wealth is stored up for the righteous. So, what is this contrast? The contrast is when a good man gets wealth, he is able to bequeath it to his children, and his children are able to bequeath it to their children. That's what's being said there, right? When a good man is wealthy, as opposed to when a sinner is wealthy, all the wealth that he's amassing and storing up, the righteous is going to get it. All the wealth that he's storing up, the righteous is going to get it. All right? So what we have here is an understanding that, on a general note, not to say there aren't exceptions, but this is the rule. On a general note, faithfulness to God and righteousness allows you to keep what you have and pass it down over generations. You're able to pass it down multi-generationally, as opposed to a wicked man who, let's assume that he also gained his wealth in a quick, wicked way. He loses it just as quickly. All right? The first Psalm says, "Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. In this law he meditates day and night. He's like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which bring forth fruit in their season. Its leaf shall not wither, and all that he does will prosper. The ungodly are not so. They are like chaff, which the wind drives away." Now, between verse 3 and verse 4, all right, that juxtaposition is there. This blessed man who meditates on the word of God, he shall be like a tree. This man who does not meditate on the word of God, this ungodly man, he will be like chaff, which the wind drives away. The blessed man, the righteous man will last. This guy will not last. The ungodly will not last. In the same way, the good man will last, and he will last in a multi-generational way, even when it comes to his wealth, whereas the sinner will not last. In fact, his wealth that he's storing up is going to go to the good man. All right? Now, there's an example of this within the scripture. We're going to go back to Genesis for this, and I'll read it and we can discuss it, all right? Genesis chapter 14, I'm going to read from verses 16 to 26. Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain had relations with his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch. And he built a city and called the name of the city Enoch, after the name of his son. Now to Enoch was born Irad, and Irad became the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael became the father of Methushael, and Methushael became the father of Lamech. Lamech took to himself 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and pipe. As for Zillah, she also gave birth to Tubal-Cain, the forger of all implements of bronze and iron, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to my voice, you wives of Lamech. Give heed to my speech, for I have killed a man for wounding me, and a boy for striking me. If Cain is avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. Adam had relations with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, for she said, God has appointed me another offspring in place of Abel, for Cain killed him. To Seth, to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. Then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. And that's it. So, what do we have here? We have another juxtaposition. Cain, at this point, he is a fugitive. He's on the run, and that's just what it is. So Cain is able to settle and marry one of his sisters, and after that, he has a son called Enoch, and he builds and establishes a city and calls the city Enoch. Now, I've heard it lauded by men who are preaching that even though Cain was a fugitive, he was able to build this city, and it shows that, that's not the end of your story, such and such and such. We need to look a little closely at this, okay? So, Cain built the city, named it after his son. Generations down, you have Lamech. Lamech has two wives, all right? Ada and Zillah. Now, Ada gave birth to Jabal, and Jabal is the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. So you have the herding of animals, and you have architecture, preliminary architecture, all right? Tent making, all right? And then Jabal's brother, he is called Jubal, and he is the father of all those who play the lyre and the pipe. So you have musicians. So far you have herdsmen, you have architects, you have musicians. All right? What again? Zillah has a son, his name is Tubal-Cain, and he is the forger of all implements of bronze and iron. So he is a smith, okay? So you have herdsmen, you have architects, you have musicians, you have smiths. All of this technological advancement that's happening in the line of Cain, as well as Cain was able to establish a city. All right? Right? So then you go down to Seth, who is the replacement for Abel, who was killed by Cain. All right? And Seth, he has a son, and his son is called Enosh. And from Seth's family, with Seth and Enosh going forward, men began to call on the name of the Lord. That's the juxtaposition. The juxtaposition is Cain and all of his accomplishments and the technological advancements of his family. And you have Seth and his family calling upon the name of the Lord. That's a juxtaposition. Let me spoil it for you as to what happens after this. Generations after Seth, if you go through Genesis 5, you'll see generations after Seth, you get Noah. Noah has a wife, all right? And they have three sons, Shem, Ham, Japheth. And each of them has a wife. And those 8 people are the people who were on the ark when God wiped out the rest of the world with water. So, that means that on the earth right now, Everybody that is here is Seth. Everybody that is here is Noah. Everybody that is here is Seth. Where's Cain? Cain is gone. I probably pump Cain in my car and drive around with Cain. Never know, right? Cain is fossil fuels. Him and all his family, they're gone. All right? Seth is still here. And where's all of the architecture? In Seth's family. Where's all of the herding of animals? In Seth's family. Where's all of the musicianship? I'm a musician. Where's all of the musicianship? In Seth's family. And what about all of the smiths? In Seth's family. Smith and Wesson, they're both descendants of Seth. So here we see that Cain is the sinner whose wealth has been laid up for Seth the righteous. And Seth is the good man who was able to leave an inheritance for his children's children. And that inheritance includes the wealth of the sinner that was laid up for the righteous. Because again, they are not the ones who were the smiths or the musicians or the architects or the herdsmen. That was all Cain. But we got that from them though. Right? Real world example of people forgetting God and being completely evil people. So evil, in fact, that God has to wipe all of them out. God wipes all of them out. This is not a junior church story. This is a very, very gruesome story. God wipes all of them out because of how evil they are. All right? And now all of their technological advancements are ours and we've built on them. We didn't come up with them, but we've built on them. We didn't come up with them, our fathers didn't come up with them, but we've built on them. All right? Clear example of the wealth of the sinner being laid up for the righteous. And this is a cautionary tale about what will happen if we get so haughty and proud in saying, look at how far we've been able to come without God, on our own, science, blah, 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 without recognizing that God is the one who determines all of these things. That God is the one without whom sparrows can't fall to the ground. That God is the one who numbers every hair on our head. His determination of what happens in history is meticulous, to the point that if God did not want us in the 21st century to have the technological advancements that we have, we would not have them. Every good and perfect gift comes from Him. Do not forget God. And don't listen to other people who want you to forget God either. Thank Him for everything. Thank Him for your bulb above your head. Thank Him for your phone in your hand. Thank Him for your WC toilet. Thank Him for everything. All right? So, with regards to AI specifically, its technology, its wealth, I'm not against it in principle. As a matter of fact, I'm for it, and it represents to me us being able to have dominion over everything more efficiently. All right? So, let's talk about music and the arts specifically. All right? The first issue that comes up, as far as this is concerned, is copyright violation and plagiarism. Because we have generative AI, AI that creates. Let's say that it creates. But remember, as I said before, there is nothing new under the sun. The only one who baras, the only one who creates ex nihilo is God. He is the only one. He is the only one who creates ex nihilo. And so, What does that mean? It means that before generative AI, everything that we have ever done has been us taking apart things that were already there, putting them together, and us associating things that were not associated before, things that were already there, based on ideas that came in our head that was influenced by things that we have witnessed and gone through in our lives. There's nothing original about anything that we do. There's nothing truly original about any of our creativity, so to speak, right? There's nothing original. And so when you see that there are generative AI music models that are being trained based on all of the music that has come before to be able to generate their own music afterwards, there is little to no difference between that and what we do. There's no difference. There is no difference as far as that is concerned, right? It's difficult to say that that's copyright violation, in my view, without saying that by being inspired by all of the things that I've been inspired by, I am also engaging in some sort of copyright violation, all right? Now, copyright is modern law, and I'm not convinced of its legitimacy. I understand that it's pitched as working in the favor of creatives like myself, and so I may be shooting myself in the foot by saying what I'm saying, or it may seem so, but copyright is not about creatives. Copyright is about owners and licensees of intellectual property. That's a completely different thing, right? The fact that I made something up doesn't mean that I own it. If I did it in the employ of someone else, then that means that they are actually the one that owns it. If I have the channels and the ability to publish the most of something, and therefore that becomes a huge bargaining chip for me to get to license or buy other people's intellectual property, you exploit it and then break them off a small piece of what I do, then yeah, I'm going to talk about copyright and its importance, and I'm going to say it's for the artists, right? Because there are fewer of me than there are of them, right? And so the best way to get favor for this type of legislation would be to say this is for the artists, all right? But that's a different conversation, right? But I'll just say very briefly, as I said before, there is nothing original. Everyone is copying. You can't get away from it. Everyone is copying. Only God creates ex nihilo. Everybody is copying to some degree. And a lawyer that's smart enough, that's astute enough, that knows the law enough, and that is wicked enough can argue that any song that you or I might, without getting too philosophical, call original, such a lawyer can argue that it's not original. You just have to be able to do it. You can find things and dig and search and all of that, and you can prove that it's not original. Nothing is original. The only thing that's original is creation itself that came out of nothing. Nothing else is original. All right? So in that sense, we're not creators, we're amalgamators, and that makes it difficult for me to consider these things. Another thing I consider is are ideas property in the biblical conception, right? Now, the Bible says, you shall not steal. Do you think in the biblical conception of this that intellectual property was in view, that content in that sense was in view? And a question to consider is, can an idea even be stolen? If you take my idea, I still have the idea. That's how it works. You can't take my idea from me, right? And then it even grows because my idea is in my head with my perspective. But then when you get involved, your perspective gets added to it. And so we both have more of that same idea than I had before when it was just me. An idea can't be stolen. That's not how ideas work. Ideas are shared and then they grow. All right. So even intellectual property is weird in that sense. So it makes me question the validity of the whole copyright franchise, right? If I write a book and I sell that book and someone copies my book, like they write out my whole book or they copy and paste my book if it's an ebook, and then they give it to someone else or they sell it to someone else, did they do anything to me? Did they actually steal from me? No, they didn't, right? What seems to be happening here is there's this desire to control more than what you own. Because if I sold you a piece of bread and I said, you're not allowed to reverse engineer this bread and make your own and sell that. If you do that, I'll sue you. If all of that is a part of the contract, I'm sure the buyer or the prospective buyer would be asking, are you even selling me this bread? I'm not sure what's happening here. Is the bread, after this transaction, is the bread going to be yours or mine? So you're telling me I could eat it, but I can't make my own just like it? That doesn't make any sense. All right? So in the sense of what is property, what can properly be called property, biblically speaking, this becomes confusing. All right? And then we confuse stealing with false witness. If there is a piece of music here that someone has created and someone else comes and they make their own version and they say that they composed it, rather than saying that they adapted it from this one, they say that they composed it themselves, that it's their original composition, so to speak. Is that person stealing? Are they sinning? Yes. Are they stealing? No. They are committing false witness. And the false witness, even them making their own derivative version, is not stealing. That's not even where the sin comes in. The sin comes in them saying that this is their own stuff. They're bearing false witness against the original composers. That's what they're doing. All right. So the whole issue of copyright violation and generative AI is weird for me. And so this whole thing just reeks to me of envy of whether it's majors, whether it's independent artists, seeing what's happening with AI and hearing that AI may or may not be using their music to those who create the AI and who manage the AI may or may not be using their music to train the AI, and they are envious. They are envious of the potential of that thing. They are envious that the music that they created is being used and then they're not getting something out of it. They would be completely fine if they got something out of it. It's just envy. And because they are envious of someone doing something without them getting something, they are going to claim that what is happening is theft. I'm questioning that. All right? But this is a whole other conversation that I'm not really here to get into so much, but I do know that when it comes to generative AI and music, that's one of the conversations, is whether or not it being trained in that way is a copyright violation. I would cast a whole cloud over that. I think that whole thing needs to be rethought. All right? But something that comes into the actual use of AI rather than the ethics of it being trained, I don't think that's a problem. But in terms of the use of it, is the AI model, the generative AI model, are you using it as a tool to help you do what you're doing? Or are you using it as your brain? Who is the creative? Is it you or is it the AI? At the end of the day, we are the ones that are made in God's image. And maybe we've made AI to a certain extent in our image, but we are the ones who are the creatives, and we are the ones that should remain the creatives. Now, what AI can do, based on all of the music that has been used to train it, is that it can make something that sounds like what it believes would be acceptable to the tastes of the general public based on the music that's been fed into it. All right? So that is what it's using. It's just like, okay, if this is the music that has been fed to me, then this must be good music. So I'll make something that sounds like this. Right? So imagine AI being fed all the lils and youngs and having to come up with a song after that. Does it mean that it would be good because AI did it? Not necessarily, right? At the end of the day, we are the creatives. And so the creative decisions should come from us. All right? I imagine that AI can be a very powerful digital audio workstation or DAW. All right. I have a couple of digital audio workstations that I have access to. Logic from Apple, Reason, Ableton, Fruity Loop Studio. These are all different programs that are used to compose music electronically. All right. Now, imagine if instead of playing or clicking in the piano roll, which is what I do a lot of times, if instead of playing or clicking in the piano roll, we can just pull the mic to ourselves and say, I want the guitar to sound like and then we tell the AI model that, and the AI model generates a guitar for us, doing what we just said we wanted, with chords and everything. And then we're able to go inside and adjust the chords and adjust the tone, or put in another prompt that says, I want the guitar to sound like this type of guitar. I want it to sound like the guitar sounded in this song. I want such and such. And you get the exact sound that's in your head because you're able to remember it specifically, put it into the model, and then have the model feed that back out to you, your own idea. I can imagine that AI will make a very good digital audio workstation, and I've even seen AI. I've even seen AI for songwriting. Now, again, you have to be creative here. I've seen there's this AI where you put in your lyrics and it generates a melody for you, but this melody can be changed. You can change the melody. You can input your chords at first and the amount of bars that you want the melody to fit in. You can change the melody. You can do different manipulations. Who's the creative? You're the creative. All right? AI is a tool that you're using, but you're the creative. All right? At the end of the day, you are the one who has to make those choices. All right? And you don't resign your brain to the hammer in your hand, because that's what AI is. AI is a very sophisticated hammer in your hand. But to a hammer, everything is a nail. And so you don't bang the hammer on everything and say it's done. No, you decide when you use the hammer, you decide when you use the screwdriver, and you decide how you use those things. And that's the same way we should use these AI models in music creation. All right? People have an issue with being replaced. People say, okay, this thing could replace us. It's quite possible, but you have to also ask yourself two questions. One, are you completely against using it? And this comes down to technology, all right? From the music production side, if you hear about a plugin, a new plugin that does something that was difficult for you to do before, do you get it? Do you not get it? Are you just the type of person that doesn't use plugins? Or if your software, the software that you use is updating, do you update with it? Or after a certain amount of updates, okay, you decide, you know what, I need to have an update. Are you tacitly against doing any of those things? If not, then why would you be tacitly against involving AI in your creative workflow, right? Do you have to do it? No, you don't. But why would you be so against it if, again, it's just technology? And if, second thing, are you using it as the tool or as the brain? All right? Because that's the thing. If you are just against using it and you're not going to use it, at some point you'll get left behind because others will be doing what you're doing more efficiently than you, and you'll get left behind in that way, right? But then on the other hand, if you're using it and you're just putting it into Suno and Udio and having it do everything for you, make all the creative decisions, do everything, after a while, the cream is going to rise to the top. And the cream is going to be those creatives who maintain control over their work and who use this thing, if they do, as a tool and not as the brain, who decide when they use it, who decide how they use it, and who use it to efficiently do what they were doing before it came around. All right? So, will you be replaced by AI? If you're concerned about being replaced by AI, then yes, you will be replaced by AI. That's what I think, right? If you're concerned about being replaced by AI, because it means that you don't have the confidence that what you do is on a level, you understand? Is on the level that it needs to be on. You're already doubting yourself for some reason, and you need to get back to the drawing board. All right? If you're just against using it, you need to question why you're telling yourself, okay, it's not that you don't use it now or that you won't use it for the next 2 years, but you're just against it completely. You have to ask yourself why, and if you will be able to deal with being left behind by those who have all of the same abilities that you have, but are also willing to use it. All right? And then when it comes to being the brain rather than the tool, if you are going to use AI to do everything, then yeah, you will be replaced. Definitely. Definitely you'll be replaced. Right? Now, there are some people who are going to use AI more than others, and that may correlate with their abilities had AI not been around. All right? So there are people who, if AI was not around, they would not be able to write songs. And they have to work on their craft. There are people who, if AI was not around, they would not be able to do production, and they have to work on that. Either you work on that, you get someone to do it for you. All right? You deal with someone who is made in the image of God, you get them to do it for you. All right? Because really and truly, us being made in the image of God means that just like God did at the end of Genesis 1, where he said, he saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. That's our important rule. We make those creative decisions, and at the end, we are satisfied with them. AI is indifferent to what it creates. You said you wanted something in the style of this. I looked at all of these things that are in that style, and I took what you gave me and I made it in that style. Do you like, I don't know. Is it good? I don't know. AI doesn't care about those things. We do, and we should. We should have this notion of this is good or this is not good. You understand where I'm coming from? And us making those decisions and us being able to make those decisions well, that is what is going to be the difference. We are the ones who will be able to last regardless of what happens technologically, because the end result, when we look at all that we have made, we will be able to say, behold, it is very good. I know that this conversation may have been all over the place, but I do hope that it was helpful. And one more thing, praise Jesus.
You made it through the whole episode, the show done. Hope you get some positive in the nucleus, you know, a proton. Anyhow, you know this slogan.
Preach Jesus.